And welcome back to the Lab Robots. Today we have an entry to the Mistral 7B Leaderboard, which is an Nvidia GeForce GTX 1660. This is a touring car that was released in approximately early 2019 or so. This is an old gaming card that I pulled out of my closet, and we're going to go ahead and run it through the tests. Just so everyone knows, this has got 6 gigabytes of GDDR5 VRAM. It's got a 192-bit bus width on it. And let's just scroll down here. Oh, it's got a TDP of about 120 watts. Okay, let's go ahead and hop over and we'll take a look and say, you know, these cards are going on eBay from anywhere from about like $40 to $60 or so. Low-end gaming card from quite a while ago. So let's go ahead, get into the tests. We're going to run through and see what quant we can get up to on here. We're going to start with the Q3, and then go to the Q4, and then go from there. As you can see, here's the flat file sizes. Q3 is about 3.52 gigs, and then it grows as we go through there. This card only has about 6 gigs of VRAM, so I will be impressed even if we don't offload the KV, if we can get this up to, say, a Q6 quant. So let's go ahead and grab the Nvidia GTX 1660 here, and let this pod restart so that we can get down to only that video card. Alright, there we go. And you can see we've got only the 1660 up. Let's go ahead and select the Mistral 7B Q3 quant and get these tests started. I'm going to go ahead and do an ML 1660 and GTX. Q3 quant. I'm going to go ahead and copy that so we can use it later. We're going to do our standard 100 token prompt. We're going to do our 20 tests, and let's get this kicked off so that we can see how Mistral 7B Q3 feels on an old GTX 1660. Down at the bottom here, just a reminder, we have MV top. We are watching that 1660 go, and you can see that it's already loaded up. Off to the right is Grafana and Prometheus. These metrics will lag behind a little bit with the test, but will give us a much better idea, and we will be pulling the average power from that. And you can see that it's cruising right along, not too shabby for an old GTX 1660. Let you guys get a feel for it. That first one is back at about 17 tokens per second. We know that that will fall through our test and it will average out to be much lower than that. But let's give you guys a quick chance here to give it a perception feel, and then we'll pause at the end of this test to let you guys get a perception feel of how it is once it's settled down. Alright, we've got a lot of tests to run today, so let's go ahead and kick it into fast forward mode, and I'll come back when this is done so that we can generate the report. ahead, and the Q3 test is over, and it looks like it settled down to about, just about 3 tokens per second. Let's go ahead and generate that report, and then we're going to move straight into Q4, and we'll come back at the very end of all of these different tests to look at the actual reports. So we're cycling that pod, clearing everything out. Go ahead and set up our Q4 report. Make sure we grab model. Oops, wrong model. I'll fix that in just a second. Do a Q4 for the report name. Change up the model real quick. Alright, we've got the right model, which is the Q4. We got the report name in there. Let's go ahead and jump on getting this test started. This is Q4 on the 1660. Give it a second just to load up. There it goes. Definitely using a little bit more VRAM. Feeling pretty good though. Feeling pretty good. I don't know. What do you guys think? This isn't too shabby. First one back at about 18 tokens per second. After that last test, we're going to see this one drop quite dramatically, I think, over the run of the test. Give you guys a bit more of a perception feel, and then we will jump right into fast forward, come back at the end, let you guys see the last test of how it settled down, and then we'll move on and see if we can get Q5 going. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. And if you were paying attention to the power usage, it wasn't too bad. It was about 50 watts over the last test. Alright, let's go ahead and kick this into fast forward, and we'll come back and let you guys watch the very last test in the Q4, just so you can get a feel for it. And the Q4 test is over, and it came in at about 2.74 tokens per second at the end. Let's go ahead and get that report generated. As we saw in the last test, the VRAM was pretty much maxed out, so I think for Q5 we are going to have to make sure we don't offload the KV, which means that we will be adding in CPU and RAM to help run this. But I think it'll be capable of doing it. So let's go ahead and get that in there, as this is part of our rules of engagement that we will allow this, especially on the low VRAM cards. There we go. Let me copy this over to that pod. And then we'll cycle the pod, make sure we get cleared out logs. Okay, you can see we cycled the pod. We're back with just the GTX 1660. We're on the model of Q5. We've got the name in. Let's go ahead and get these tests started off. And there it loads right up. Using about 1.5 gigs of memory on the host and about 5 gigs of memory on the GPU. Moving fairly quick, using the benefit of the CPU and RAM to help out this low VRAM card. Doesn't look too bad to me. How does this feel for perception-wise to you guys? First couple back at just over 24 and 25 tokens per second. I assume that's going to fall down quite a bit over the range of the test. Let's go ahead and kick it into fast forward mode, and we'll come back when Q5 is almost done and let you guys feel. And the final numbers came down to about 14.5 tokens per second on the Q5 with the KV staying on the host. So let's go ahead and get this report generated. And we'll get right into seeing if we can get Q6 running. Again, we will have to keep the KV not being offloaded to the GPU. So let's go ahead and get our model selection set up here for Q6. We're going to keep the KV on the host since we're very low on VRAM here. And we'll go over, we're going to cycle the pod so we get all fresh logs and results from it. Make sure we get the correct Q6 model set up. Change our name for the report. And let's go ahead and get this kicked off and started. There it's loading up. You can see almost 6 gigs of VRAM being used and almost 2 gigs of memory on the host. Feeling pretty good. Remember, this is Q6 on a 1660. We are splitting in between the host and the GPU because we're low on VRAM. First one back at about 22.8. Let's go ahead and kick it into fast forward mode, and we'll come back when this is over, because I do not think we are going to be able to get to Q8, but we will give it a shot. Alright, that Q6 test is over. Came down to about 13.5 tokens per second, split in between the GPU and the CPU and RAM. Let's go ahead and generate that report. And then let's go ahead and just see if we can get Q8 to even run on this. I don't think we will, even by splitting the RAM and keeping the KV on the host. So let's go ahead and modify the Q8 model config here to add the no KV offloading. Go ahead and save that, and we'll copy it over to the pod. Go ahead and cycle this pod so we can get all new fresh logs. Type out our name here, make sure that we get this all going. This is going to be the Q8. Make sure we get the Q8 model selected. And then let's go for it and see if this will even load. We'll know right away below if the memory just doesn't load up and the test starts failing. There it goes. And no, it's just eating it. So let's go ahead and just generate all the reports and combine them into one so that we can go ahead and take a look at it. Let me go ahead and find all the different ones. There's Q3, there's Q4. Ooh, I need to go fix my code so it alphabetizes this. There's Q6 at the bottom, missing Q5. So let's go find Q5. There it is, Q5. We know Q6 is down here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and name this report ML GTX 1660. We'll go ahead and combine those files into a single report. And let's hop over and take a look at the results of all the quants from the GTX 1660. Expand this out so that you guys can see it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the results. Now, in blue, we have the Quant 3, in orange is the Quant 4, in green is the Quant 5, and in red is the Quant 6. Now, I want to remind you that Q5 and Q6 were both not offloading the KV to the GPU. So keep that in mind as we're looking at the results. Here's the evaluation time. You can see Q5 and Q6 are down there at the bottom. Here's the total time. Prompt tokens evaluated should be 111 across all the tests. Completion tokens, which is basically going to mimic the length of your result. Total tokens are going to be those two basically added together. And then the prompt tokens per second. Again, to remind you, Q5 and Q6 were not offloading the KV. And the evaluation tokens per second. You can see Q5 and Q6 there up at the top, running at just about 15 tokens per second. Remember, the KV was not offloaded for those. We did fully offload for the Q3 and the Q4 models. Interesting, huh? Some of these older cards really benefit from actually keeping the KV on the CPU and memory. Let's go ahead and add all of these results into the leaderboard and see where the GTX 1660 lands. Okay, for the Q3, we can actually see that it's in third place. And remember, we did not offload that, so the P2000 and the CPU are beating it on Q3. Let's take a look at Q4. Similar scenario on the Q4. It is still in third place. Remember, we did not offload the KV at all. Let's go take a look at Q5. Oh, in Q5, it suddenly takes the lead. 17 evaluation tokens per second. And then let's go ahead and take a final look at Q6. And yes, it indeed beat out the CPU with about 15 evaluation tokens per second and takes first place for now. Remember, you can come to RoboTF.ai and you can see the leaderboard yourself. You can also check out the reports. Go get yourself some pizza with your AI. I'll see you guys next time.